Yes. So let's get started. What's your thesis that you wanted to present? I heard that you have a thesis that you've
I was telling them about your race realism.
Race realism.
But
thesis.
obviously, you told me that you wanted to talk about something else as well. I don't know. It's up to you.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Leon said we should have a chat. I don't know if there's any thesis. He said, race realism. Whatever you want to chat about. But I assume Islam is more interesting for you than race realism.
Well, I don't mind. Either would be fine.
Content over everything!
I mean, I thought that was your thing that you wanted to talk about.
Well, I talk about many things. But we can talk about Islam. We can talk about what do you think about the returning girl from Tibetan Green, who wants to come back to Tibetan Green?
I haven't been keeping up with the news deep, good enough to know what's going on with that. So I need to read the papers to know exactly what's being referred to, and then after I've read the papers, I need to disregard all that material. And see.
It's just a newspaper.
Yeah. But with you, I wanted to talk about the race realism thing. I thought it was interesting.
So you want me to describe race realism? You know what race realism is? Or?
Please go ahead. It's an ethno-nationalist kind of belief you believe.
Oh, no, that's separate. So race realism is different. So race realism is a part of biological realism, which is a part of scientific realism. Let's start with philosophical scientific race realism. I have biological realism, and then I have two pillars, race realism and gender realism. And from that I get biological individualism, one chimp, I'm a chimp, you're a chimp. And then from that I get groups in society, which is biological group collectivism. So only after genetics 1955, in the last 20 years using big data computing, we can start seeing patterns that show up as you would expect, like in other species, that we have genetic data that causes behavior. So race realism is one of the pillars sitting with gender realism and scientific biological realism, saying, hey, I look at this data set against that, I can see patterns. What you do with these things as policies and positions is phase two, once you get over the fact that race is real or not.
But that phase two...
That makes sense.
No, I wouldn't disagree with the fact that we have genetic material that predisposes us to certain behavior.
It describes us 100%. Your body, your skin, your bones, your genes. You have 20,000 genes, your hair, your color, your shape, your behavior, your aggression, all of it genetic, and then your environment. There's nothing else.
But the egg and chicken and egg scenario would be what came first.
Evolution. So we have a history.
No. What I mean by that, what I mean is, it goes to the nature versus nurture debate. So the discussion of, is it inherent or is it superimposed? In other words, is it something you're born with, or is it something that you were given?
Well, something you're born in, which just didn't come about by magic. So 6.2 million years ago, we came from chimps and split. We have a history of genes that became this, a 20,000 digit pin code.
No.
And that's where we are today.
Behavior.
Yeah, it comes from that's where we are today.
Behavior.
Yeah.
Your behavior, is it as a result of, are you born with that behavior?
You're born with your genes that will then be expressed in an environment.
Yeah, no, but then you can't make that claim.
Well, that's what happened.
No, let me tell you why I can't make that claim.
Okay.
With ease. It would be nice to say that, yeah? It would be fairly reductionist to kind of say that.
Okay.
But it's not tenable as a generalizable statement.
Okay.
Because it doesn't take into consideration the fact that you could have environmental factors supervening on yourself as a person, right? That then produce X behavior.
Correct.
So you don't know what causes what first.
It's not a way of predicting an individual trait. No.
You don't know what causes
That's
what. You don't know whether you're born with that behavior or whether you were caused to be like that because of the environment.
No, we're making a deeper claim saying we're not using it to predict what one chimp is going to do, but we can look at group behaviors and the data is the data.
Yeah, but is the group behavior, is it as a result of the inherent characteristics of the person,
the genes and environment,
or is it as a result of that interaction between?
So a way to think of it is you're born with a 20,000 pin code, you live for 80 years, and your pin code is going to express itself in the environment every day for your 80 years.
No problem.
And then you're going to have children, and you're going to mix your genes again, and off you go again.
Biological determinism is totally reductive, because it doesn't take into consideration factors that can then be translated into genetic data.
But I'm not claiming or arguing for biological determinism.
Let me give you an easy example, right?
Yeah.
Your case seems to be one of biological determinism.
No, biological realism, not determinism.
But
I'm a computer scientist. We don't have such deterministic models. I'm a theoretical computer scientist. We have no such classes of determinism. So
No, but-
biological
but-
determinism would be a subcase that we don't have such computer
No,
science
I'm not talking
models.
about computer science. I'm just saying
Right.
that
No, but there
if,
wouldn't be
if
anything
you're
else.
saying that genetic data
Yeah,
is
it's
solely
data, yeah.
is solely is the sole reason that can explain human behavior.
I didn't say it's the sole reason.
Okay, so what then?
So it's a gene environment. So imagine a seesaw.
Yes.
So some percent of a behavior, trait, or bone structure. So some part of your body, some part of your behavior would be a genetic environment balance in a seesaw. Or 20,000 genes, 20,000 seesaws in an environment
So
is what is happening.
That calibration
Correct, that's
of
the
seesaw,
case.
your
Yeah.
word, seesaw calibration
Correct.
is not something we can understand.
Oh, we are racing ahead.
No. We can't understand what's causing the
Why do you
permutations,
say
the changings. Because once again, it's chicken before the egg scenario. How do we know if this behavior was quote unquote socially constructed or whether it was biologically determined?
Okay, the answer to that's very easy. So we know how to conduct perfect gene experiments you can do by identical twins. And now that we have gene studies for 50 years with identical twins, and now we have data, we start measuring what people are doing. So before we can measure it
now you're going into social sciences, yeah?
pure genetic data correlation. So if you imagine
ahead.
the human genome was sequenced in 2002, it was complete. Since then we've sequenced all 20,000 genes to find the non-coding ones. And for those genes, we look at the number of sequences we ran. In that year it started 400, last year was 1.6 million. Sequences being run. That data is being fed to a mesh that says us chimps, all 7 billion of us, are going to be wired up. And we're going to use determinism based on scientific evidence. Are we being deterministic? No, we don't have the computer science models to be deterministic.
You're confusing what I'm trying. My interrogation is not. It's not this. What's your overarching claim? Your overarching claim is that your genetic disposition is it describes human behavior. Yeah.
No, our claim
So
would be
what was it?
our intellectual claim that overarches the technicalities would be that
Yes.
because and only through a biological version of realism, gender realism or race realism. So that be gender, not to be controversial.
What is gender? Sorry, what's gender?
Male or female. For example, men and women have different IQs. It's this data moving up that we've never had before. It's going to give us ways of solving problems in society we have not been able
The issue,
to.
let's be frank and honest here,
Yeah.
because this line of reasoning leads us to certain claims about black people and
All sorts of people, white people, black, all colored chimps. Equal
let's
opportunity.
use the example of let's be frank and honest. Let's use the example of IQ and race.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, two things.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to put into this analysis right now all other variables. I'm just going to keep it as reductive as that, right?
Yeah, okay.
We know from data analysis.
Yeah, we've got the data.
Let's say
Repeatable.
some would say that black people have a lower IQ than
The group average is lower, yes.
the group average, yeah?
Correct.
Yes. Now, if we take your version of events, or like looking at the genes, etc., data, or whatever,
Correct.
as indicative of identities in this way, then in that case, you could easily make the claim, well, therefore, white people are more smart than black people.
Well, the entire, for example, United States college admission system is based on the fact that you have quotas based on SAT. The SAT is a class of IQ test. It's completely legitimate.
Where are you from originally? Sorry.
My dad's Indian, my mom's English.
Okay, so what's your view on that? My question is...
My own personal view.
Yes, do you think it's... No, let me be frank and honest. Do you think it's a fair statement if I say white people are smarter than black people?
Yeah, but white people aren't the smartest.
No, I'm not saying they're the smartest. I'm just asking the question.
No,
right?
just making sure if any white people are listening, you're not the smartest.
Is your view that white people are smarter than black people?
They are.
Yes, they are.
Group
okay.
average.
No, and no problem. And you believe that? And you believe that? I'm happy that you're friends with me. And your view...
It's like my little sister.
Listen, and your view is based on the fact
data, right.
of the IQ test.
Yeah.
Okay, there are
All the
lots
IQ tests.
There's
SAT,
there are lots of issues with this. Let's use this as the example. Let me show you why this is a problematic thesis. Yeah. The first issue with this is that you're assuming. First, let's go with the IQ testing. IQ tests are not a perfect measure. Number one, right? They're based on logical tests, mathematical tests, and linguistic tests.
We have the SATs, you have the GREs.
And by the way, and they're based on a kind of psychology.
Yeah, but the SAT is an IQ test.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a pedagogical approach
Correct.
to understanding human intelligence.
Yeah, the best predictor we have.
Yeah, it's not. You're using these words. A best predictor does not mean the best. The best predictor is comparative to other social science models. Right? That's number one.
So if you were ill tomorrow, Mohammad, if you were ill tomorrow and you had a heart attack, you wouldn't want a low IQ heart surgeon.
Let me continue. Hold on. Let me continue. Number two, what you're not understanding is the idea of environmental factors. Yeah?
Okay, tell me about
so
that.
obviously someone can turn around easily and say to you, the reason why black people score lower on IQ tests than white people is because number one, they've had less opportunities with IQ tests and with, let's say for example, those component parts of IQ tests, and that's a result of the environmental factor. And that's generational because of slavery and the institution of slavery and colonization and so on.
Yeah, but all these words must collapse into the genes.
But do you see what I'm...
Right? They must still collapse into the gene pool.
So what's supervening onto what? My question is the environmental factor supervening...
Everything is a balance.
No, hold on. Is the environmental factor supervening on genetic data, or is it genetic data that is supervening on extraneous environmental data?
A better way to think of it is a constant dance, left and right.
No problem. Even if
that's what's happening.
Yes.
A dance and a dance and a dance.
Yeah. So, no issue. But then you're going into a kind of neo-Lamarckian evolution.
Yeah.
That's a problem, and I'll tell you why, because you used the word evolution a few times, And the Lamarckian approach would suggest, like, the giraffe, when it stretches its neck, yes? When the giraffe stretches, the neck gets longer and longer, And then that genetic information is then transmitted to the offspring, which is then transmitted to the offspring and so on. But neo-Darwinian evolutionary models are not in exact tandem with that kind of a thesis. So within evolution, biological information, it's not as if there's a consensus on that kind of understanding.
No, but if you took your saliva and you sent it to 23andMe,
so in other words,
your history where it became from Egypt to Baghdad would be sure.
Let me give you an example. Another example. White people, if every white person, went and lived in, let's say the desert for one generation, and then they developed a tan, so they became like my color. Yes.
It'll take a lot longer than that.
Okay, maybe let's say every day they're on the sunbed, something.
A lot longer. Than
no problem. If they have children, would they be tanned?
A lot longer.
Would they? But your inference is equivalent to saying that, because you're saying that. No, let me tell you why. Right? The institution of slavery, I'm sorry to say, was the 400 or 500 year institution.
Still going on today.
I'm not. It's longer than that, but I'm talking about transatlantic slavery. I'm not talking about the human history of slavery. I'm talking about particularly the slavery that existed.
White on black slavery in Africa.
White on black slavery in Africa. Yeah. All right. So if what you're saying, and this is a counter to the counter, you say, well, the reason was that there's been a dance between this and that. The time human beings have been around in history is not a long enough time for that dance to have been to have had a characteristic supervention on the genetic material. Because let me tell you why. Because because evolutionary processes, as defined by those who define them, take a long time to like we're talking about millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of years. So these environmental factors cannot be said to be, once again, so influential on human genetics as to cause them to be inherited by offspring. So your idea that I
understand what you're saying, but let me tell you why I think you're
going
wrong.
Back to the IQ issue, someone could then turn around and say, well, then in this case, if you have a black person and a white person and have the same IQ test training opportunity, then their forefathers shouldn't have any. There should be no. Who cares about their forefathers? Even if they were slaves or whatever, they had no opportunities because that wouldn't have had enough of a genetic effect on them.
I think I understand your point. So there's three parts of what you're saying. Let me tell you why they're not right. IQ and racial collectives, we can get to that again. IQ is just a concept mathematically with a G-loaded test. G is the perfect measure we have for intelligence. The SAT is an IQ test, your IQ by Mensa's IQ test, your GRE is an IQ test. I can make up a maths exam for 8-year-old, that's a type of IQ test.
For who?
That's a type of an IQ test.
You can make them up for who?
For an 8-year-old nephew of mine studying, for example, right? And you can say that this IQ test, however, has the same repeated. If you take race off the table for a second, and you look at the board right now, there are 7 billion chimps in 2050 we quiesce with 10 billion people, chimps, and here's what the chimps look like. The bottom 20% of the IQ, no race, no gender, no nationality, the bottom 20% of the IQ, something has to happen with them. Why? Because we as a society, we already been roles that they couldn't possibly perform. So there is let me say. So imagine our chimps right now, there's 7 billion right now, and our population gets to 10 billion chimps.
Just before you continue, Ralph, stop using the word chimps because it confuses me.
Okay,
right?
people, fine.
Just use the word human beings.
Human beings.
Because if you say chimps, we're thinking about monkeys, all right?
Yeah. No, you're thinking about that. I use chimp all the time. I think we're all chimps.
I'm just saying it for my sake. I know you might believe that we're all chimps.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
We look like chimps.
Yeah. But in the common vernacular, when we say chimps, we're talking about monkeys. When we say people, human beings, we're talking about
that's other people have their own narrative.
Oh, no.
That's
Just use the word human beings so we can understand each other.
So moving that off. So if you look at that genetic thing, can differences occur? Well, there's a BC and an AC in knowledge that is prior to the discovery of the double helix and what we knew before. What we knew before in molecular biology and what we knew anecdotally is we could breed species. I could make different types of dogs, different types of horses very quickly. I could make different types of flowers. My carrots are only orange for that reason. We could breed in a small amount of time without understanding genetics to have that effect. So you're wrong. We've always known how to do this.
So what am I wrong?
Before in knowledge, there's a line you draw in 1955, before the discovery of the before genetics, we already knew how to make different types of dogs, different type of hunting dogs. We already knew how to control genetic variation without knowing what it was causing it. I gave you enough time, hear me out.
Yeah.
So now what you see is now after 1955, in the last 20 years, we have data that says, oh, we're nothing special as human beings. We're not that special from the other 7 billion human beings. You know, there's nothing more common than the need to feel special. You're just another one of these human beings that we can look and measure. And whoop-de-whoop, are you surprised we have genetic differences? I have a genetic predisposition for type 2 diabetes. I want to be treated as a different human being because of my gene code.
You want to be treated?
Well, if I have type 2 diabetes, yes I do. Thank you for the genetic data. Now, if you're telling me some genetic data is not what you want to hear, that's a political argument. And you park that from scientific realism that says this is the genetic data.
Right now, what you've done, Ralph, sorry to say, I know you expect me to make the political argument, and I know
I'm expecting it at some point.
No, Ralph, let me be honest with you, right? I know you expect me to make a political argument. You expect me to make a judgment-based argument.
I expect nothing less of you.
No, Ralph, I know you expect that. You say, look, how dare you say that white people are cleverer than black people, and how dare you say that black people have a lower IQ? That means that
men and women
they're less smart, and so on. How dare you say all of that? I have not made that statement. You know why? You know why I've not made that statement? I want to show you the fallacies in your thought process.
That would be lovely.
No, hold on. Not through moral sanctimony.
Okay, good man.
Not through moral sanctimony, because it can easily. I'm sure some people have already done that with you, right?
You're Muslim, right?
I'm Muslim.
Yeah, I'm Christian, so I don't listen to them.
Oh, no problem.
I listen to him above.
Yes. So, any point. Yes. So as I was saying, I'm not making a sanctimonious case. I could make a sanctimonious case and say to you, look, I can say to you, you're racist. I can say, how dare you say this? You're racist against black people.
As a Christian, I can tell you that black Christian mother.
No,
I can tell you why you're wrong.
But I'm not making that sanctimonious case. What I'm saying is this. I'm going to show you why you're wrong about this.
Okay. There's a technical argument. Let's see if we can do that one first.
Yes. There are 3 stages of your argument, all right? Or there are three factors that we have to kind of look at. Number 1 is we have to look at the genetic data argument. That's one part of your That's one part of your argument. The question is, how do human beings function in a society, and is their performance in a society totally defined by the genetic data?
Not totally, and I repeatedly answered the same question by saying it's always a seesaw.
Yeah, then you said it's a seesaw.
It's always that.
I appreciate.
All 20,000
I appreciate it's a seesaw. So, which means it's to say it's a two-way road.
Correct.
So the environmental factors supervene on human genetics.
Obviously, co-evolution does.
The environmental factors supervene on human beings. And vice versa. Now, is that hereditary or not?
Yes, because you can measure what is
okay, no. Now, the question now is, which is important, to what extent is it hereditary?
Different phenomena at the individual human being level or at the collective level can be measured. Example, the 5-HTPLR gene measures individualism versus collectivism. The S allele that misfires is different in white people than non-white people. You plot that SLEO genes, you see all the highest tight ethnic groups, the Japanese all clustered together, and you see the Scandinavian countries all by
No,
themselves.
I appreciate.
This is just the data.
I appreciate.
Make what of you like.
No.
Right? Just
the
data,
reason why I said
right?
the word, to what extent is it? And I didn't say it isn't. The reason why I said to what extent is it, and I didn't say it isn't. Yeah.
Correct.
It's
Yeah, the
because
data shows you it
I
is.
agree. No,
Yeah.
to some extent,
Yeah.
it is. But what I'm saying is the extent to which you're portraying it to be the case is not the extent to which it is. Okay. And I'll
No,
tell
but
you
it's
why.
different phenomena. So divorces is something, for example, marriage
second.
lasting, different high-level social phenomena that seem like magic could have an explanation.
Let me
We
give
can
you
learn
an
the
let me give you an
explanations.
example, right? If a community, if you and you love strawberries, for example, for the sake of argument, you love strawberries, your whole family likes your strawberry eating family. Okay, now you have children, they're displaced into a different part of the world. To what extent is their predisposition to strawberries going to be as intense?
But let me give you a better one than strawberries. Do you know what percentage of your political views, Mohammed, do you know what percentage are hereditary genetically? 40%. Now that
to what?
shocks your ego.
No,
That's the genetic data.
According to what? No.
That's the genetic data.
No, hold on.
No, that shocks your ego. You're like, how dare?
It doesn't shock me anyway.
No,
It doesn't shock
this
me.
is my own view. That's such a kind of 40% is your mother and your father.
Really?
Yeah.
My dad's a liberal. If you see my dad, I've done a podcast with him.
Alhamdulillah.
I've done a podcast. No, he's not.
He used to.
I've done a podcast with my dad. You're
You
gonna
got
see.
softy in your gene pool.
We're completely
You got
different.
softy in your gene pool.
Completely different people. Completely different individuals. But what I was gonna say was this. That's a nice try. But what I was gonna say was, the reason why I'm making this clear is because here you're confusing different things. Okay, you're confusing evolutionary biology, which is a process. I know microbiology. We're talking about something which takes. Yeah, it's happening now.
You can change dogs in generation.
But if we're talking about speciation and evolutionary biology, that actual change that happens, which is significant enough, and that will affect generation to generation, we're talking about something which will take more than 200, 300, 400 years.
No, not at all. A generation is 20 years now. 4 generations is 80 years in your lifetime.
I know that, but
so
I'm
one
talking-
person can live with 4 generations in their time temp.
Go back to the example of getting a
Even
tan.
3.
If you're a white man, you go to the desert, get a tan, you become tan person. Now you're.
So you as a person, though, Mohammad Hijab, you can only live 80 years.
Pardon?
In your years that you lived, in
How
your
do you
80
know about
years.
that, brother? You might be
Yeah, you might be
100
more to some. You might be. You could be 12. I don't
So,
think you're 12.
from your analysis, you think that blacks are the lowest, yeah, in terms of
No,
intelligence?
these are group averages.
No problem. Who's the highest?
Ashkenazi Jews now being threatened by
Oh,
Indians and Chinese. Indians and Chinese in the West.
No problem. Ashkenazi.
If you like it.
Well, what's number 2 on the list?
Well, it used to be East Asian, but now it's changing. It's been threatened. This environmental
Threatened,
dance.
yeah? All right.
This environmental dance has been threatened by
Yeah.
Indians and Chinese abroad in the US and the West. So they've taken the most opportunity. So that's a new race. It used to just be
So,
Ashkenazi.
but you just said it yourself now, right?
That's
You
just the
said-
data, you know.
No. This is confusing me, right? You're confusing me. You're using the collective averages of a small sample group,
Correct. SATs,
generalizing
SATs.
them,
No,
knowing,
large volume.
generalizing them, and then coming to conclusions about who the cleverest people and the dumbest people
Yeah,
are.
that
in the
just
world.
correlates perfectly with
No,
outcomes.
but then you're talking about opportunity, right?
Yeah, you don't see many sub 90 IQ lawyers
Pardon?
or doctors, and not with an IQ of under 90.
Say that again, sorry?
There are no doctors with an IQ under 90 and 95.
Look,
There's no lawyer with an IQ under 90.
you're
right?
not understanding my interrogation here.
Yeah.
We've already dealt with the genetics.
Yeah.
We've understood.
Yeah.
And I'm
There are
happy
no
that you
IQ
understand.
people, high IQ
No, I'm happy that you say it's a dance and it's a two-way road.
Correct.
Okay. Now,
Things are emotional.
my question to you is this: how do you explain, in your worldview and your understanding, that black people have got the lowest IQ? From your understanding.
We don't know how we got here. That's going to take a lot longer to
No,
learn.
I'm not talking about. That's not my question. Why? What's your reasoning for? Is it something within? Is it something within the genes of black people that make them, in your mind, dumber than, like, say, for instance, like?
Well, dumb
Ashkenazi?
that you can see group back. No, but let's look at very smart black people. There are much smarter black people than you and possibly I from Nigeria.
Wait a minute, that is the most ridiculous. This guy is. He goes. That is the most ridiculous thing I've heard in
These
my
high
life.
IQ Nigerians, really smart guys, but there's 210 million Nigerians.
So, wait a
On the
minute.
210
So
million
you're saying-
curve, the really
Wait a
smart
minute.
Nigerians, they're fucking flying.
Let's
Right?
let's
They're
pause.
smarter.
Let's pause, brother.
But the rest of the
sorry,
Nigerians-
let's pause, brother. Let's pause, brother. Let's pause. You said there are many black people that are much cleverer than you and possibly.
I didn't see me.
No. We have to. We have to pause. We have to pause.
You're just mutating my material.
No. We have to pause.
That's fine.
Because what's your computer scientist? Yeah. Is that your background? Is it
Numbers, like a typist.
what uni did you go to?
Well, I wandered around the world. What did you study? Are you into academic qualifications? What do you do? What's your job?
Say again?
What do you do?
I'll tell you about me afterwards. But
I computer science. I run a tech startup.
Did you do a degree on
Yeah,
this?
I did all sorts of crazy stuff. Yeah, I'm quite old. I'm much older than you, probably.
Definitely. Definitely. All right.
It's the blissful ignorance of youth.
No. But
I was told you'd be a really right-wing Muslim. I want to talk to a right-wing Muslim. I don't talk to them. But let's keep going race like
what I did want to say to you is that your understanding of this is skewed. Number one on the genetic level, superfection. All right, let me explain to you, right? IQ tests, what are they? Can you explain to me what they are?
IQ tests are what are called G-loaded tests. They're
Right.
tests.
What are they?
There are 14 different components, for example. But if you break down the racial calculation, as race gets everyone all excited, you see the Ashkenazi Jews on top and everything.
No, I know that.
So different people have different clusters. The point is, this is the data that says this is what you are. Yeah, look at the SAT. SAT is even better. SAT is
What is the IQ test?
It's a measure of, we think intelligence has things like, if I give you a 7-digit number right now and ask you to reverse it, let's see how long it takes you. And then you, and then you, and then you.
Ralph.
I see that's not equal.
I want you to tell me.
You want to go? We can go right now.
Ralph, who defined the IQ test?
I can do one right now.
Listen,
for you.
Calm down.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I've got high numbers on that already.
You got high numbers.
Yes. And so do a lot of people, right?
I know.
No,
Nigerians, man.
Listen, it's not just Nigerians, Ghanaians, but it's not the IQ test. My questioning is of the IQ test.
Yeah, okay. So you don't like the IQ test?
The IQ test itself
has problems, yeah.
Listen to me. The IQ test not just has problems. In psychology, you have two things which are referred to as intelligence. One is Goleman's thing of emotional intelligence, and then you have the IQ test.
I read all that as epistemological witchcraft. We're going to replace it all with cognitive
there's a discussion. It's all. I'll tell you something. No, listen,
like astrology.
Ralph, listen. You look like you've been listening to a bit of Jordan Peterson and these guys, who also have a very negative view of emotional intelligence and stuff like that. But don't take what these white men say very seriously just because you think they have a high IQ. Let me tell you something. Honestly. Let me tell you something. The reason why they have.
Sorry, let me interrupt. Mohammad, this guy, we grew up together, and now he's become a role model for me. If only more speakers could be like him. And I was just condemning, what's their name? The small Anjem Choudhury supporters.
The small ones.
Bilal and Suleiman, yeah? We're against Anjem Choudhury, yeah?
Yeah.
We're against Anjem Choudhury. Who else are we against? Bilal and Suleiman. Carry on, yeah? You got that fucking hat again?
No time, isn't it? Look at where you are, man. This is England. It's not District 12.
Here's what we'll talk about the philosophy of science, yeah?
Okay.
The philosophy of science has gone through processes and stuff like that. As you know, yeah?
But now now we know what it is.
No, you don't.
Oh, we do. I do.
Well, listen, Ralph. This is where you have to. This is my view on you so far.
Okay.
I think that you've soaked up a lot of cultural hegemonic ideas of white men, and that that's my view, right? And you've not employed a good enough criticality of those
ideas. Well, I want to hear
ideas.
the scientific stuff.
You've not employed a good enough criticality of that thing. Of those ideas. So here's what I'm going to say: that the philosophy of science has undergone processes and shifts. For example, in ancient Hellenistic philosophy, we know that it was based on a kind of deductionism. Aristotle and so on had a philosophical idea of what the scientific method entailed. It moved on to Ibn Haytham and all that kind of stuff through the Middle Ages and whatever. And then you had verificationism, right? Verificationism collapsed in the 1920s, and then you had Karl Popper, who went to the LSE, not far away. He's a nice white man, you might like him.
I know his work quite well.
And so he proposed falsificationism, right? But even with someone like Karl Popper, who propounded falsificationism, even with someone like him, when he was referring to psychology, he referred to it as a pseudoscience.
Yes, he's right.
Okay, hold on. He's right. I'm happy you say that he's right.
Yeah, I'll tell you why.
No, hold on. So you can go tell your friend Jordan Peterson that he's a psychologist, all right?
He's wrong.
he's not wrong. Wrong on what? You have to be specific.
He's all-time Robinson. He's all-time Robinson.
He's too left wing for me.
Let's stick on the point.
He called people packing driver.
Yeah, but he's too left wing for me, mate.
But you know the far right, you know the white far right, right? They're not
So-
accepting.
Yeah, but
Sorry, brother, can I just finish with him? And then we can-
You're too brown, Ralph.
So the point,
They won't accept, they won't
wants to
accept
talk to
you.
you.
we can talk afterwards. All right, so.
Being rude to him and stuff. He
Right,
gets upset.
so here's what I want to say to you.
He's like a little hobbit.
Here's what I want to say to you.
Different chimps. Go on.
So what I was going to say to you was this. Here's what I was going to say to you. The point is this. If you accept that psychology, in your words, is pseudoscience,
Correct.
IQ tests are socially scientific constructions.
They're repeatable experiments. Data.
Hold on.
I can give you one
No,
right
hold
now.
on.
Yeah.
See, this exposes a lot. What you just said there, thank you very much, you said it, yeah?
Okay, go on.
This exposes that...
Sorry for the interruption.
No, it does expose, Ralph, that you have not looked into this enough.
Okay.
And I want you to. That's why I asked when Leon came to me, and he said that this brother Ralph, he has a new theory. It's called race realism
I'm
theory.
waiting for what the point is.
Yeah,
you make,
no, I'm explaining to you right now.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how genetics has an impact on performance
It
and
does.
identity. And so, and I agree with that to some extent, but and then he explained it to me, and I wanted to hear it from you, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it came to this conclusion that black people and white people and all that kind of stuff. We talked about that.
It's data.
But it's data. That's what white people say when they want to make a case. Data can be.
You have this anti-white hatred about you.
No.
It's very
Yes, what
strange.
you
Why are
think.
you against whitey, man?
No, I'm not against
I
white
mean, I
people.
know why you are, but I want to hear from you.
Because there's a rewhitening of the narrative, and they use brown men like you to do it.
Yeah.
All right. No, it's true. Now, let me tell you.
But that's not really. That's not your agenda. It's not really that.
I'll be honest with you.
I know what your agenda is.
A lot of people have a lot of colonial amnesia. You don't realize that your
Do you
forefathers were
consider Islam
subjects.
to be colonizing?
Not really, no.
Mimetically not? Okay.
Well, that's the secondary discussion.
We reverse engineer this.
Secondary discussion.
I like to talk about Islam with you.
We don't believe in colonization.
we reverse engineered this
We don't
song.
believe in colonization. All right. So come back to this point. The point I'm making is this. It's full on point. Yeah. If you said that psychology, in Karl Popper's words, a pseudoscience.
Correct. He's
And-
right.
and yes, you say it's right.
Yes.
Which,
Actually,
okay,
Karl.
if it's a pseudoscience, it means it doesn't work using the exact principles of the scientific method.
Correct.
Therefore, this is what it means. When you do peer reviewing,
Yeah. Which is already unscientific.
when you're doing peer reviewing,
Yes.
in an already problematic structure of the
Correct. It's even worse.
scientific method,
Yeah.
which has theory-ladenness and the
Correct.
problem of induction,
I understand the
and
criticism.
recalcitrant facts and all that kind of problem.
Well-versed law critiques.
I'm sure you're happy. But now, even with this, there's something like psychology, which is pseudoscience,
Correct.
will have exacerbated problems, right?
Correct.
If that's the case, the IQ test, which is nothing but it's a social science experiment.
No, it's a data observation device.
Hold on.
I'm a geek.
What is social science?
It's a set of data points. You don't understand. Let me tell
Ralph,
you about proper
Ralph,
now.
please,
Let me. You tell a lot of
Ralph,
things.
please,
let me
please,
tell you what
Ralph,
you don't
please,
understand.
No, let me just explain. Let me explain what I'm saying.
I can help.
Please,
I can help you
please, let me
understand.
explain what I'm saying.
I want to red pill you,
Let me
man.
explain what I'm saying. No, because you expected me to go for the moral sanctimony. Now I'm going with.
No, I
your
like
theory.
you didn't. You're a man of God. You didn't waste time. with that. Right.
Okay.
You're not a
now
dama.
let's go. No.
It's due diligence.
Yes. No. Let's deal with it.
Okay.
You saying black people.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to keep using this as an example. Let's say.
Pick one of you. You can make white finish black.
Black,
White. You want white problems?
You're saying black people are less intelligent than white people as a result of their results on the IQ tests as a collective group, and that's indicative.
Repeatable study for 50 years.
That's indicative of a genetic.
Go to Google, type it in.
Please, calm down, please. I know you keep laughing, but I just want to. You saying that is problematic on account of the following. IQ tests themselves are not compliant with the scientific method.
Okay.
And let me explain to you. The IQ test itself is a configuration which is susceptible to human critique and or amendment. Right or wrong?
Correct.
Correct. Therefore, using it as an exact measure for human intelligence,
A current measure.
as a current measure, is unjustified.
Why?
Especially considering, let me explain. Especially considering that those who constructed the IQ test themselves were people who might have had biases.
Well, we have new ones.
Now,
Generated by computer.
Let me give an example. Let me give an example, right? And this is not something. Let me give an example. Is bilingualism or multilingualism included in the IQ test? Or, my question, is it included, yes or no?
No, they're different concepts.
No, it's not. Right, yeah. Now, here's the point. Let me ask you a question. Do black people have a higher or lesser chance of being bilingual or multilingual than a white man?
No, look, can I just
please, Ralph.
Okay.
Please.
No, language is not locked that way.
Ralph.
The answer is no.
Okay. I'm asking a question.
No, they don't.
Does a black man in Africa have a higher or lesser chance of being bilingual or multilingual than a white man in Europe?
It's equal for all babies.
No, it's not equal.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not equal.
No, do you know why?
No, it's not equal.
Do you know how new language? Okay, we talk about
Ralph, it's not equal.
I don't take people off the rail.
Sorry, Ralph. Sorry, I apologize.
You go off the rail.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. Sorry.
No, I'm listening for what? At some point I'm going to take over.
I'm sorry.
Can you make a summary point? Because you're wandering for everyone else, right?
Let's be specific.
Okay.
The Western European example. Yeah. Western Europe. I'm going to be very specific. I'm talking about this colonial narrative of especially Western Europe, okay? And I think you have to understand something, brother, yeah? You have to really understand something. These eugenics programs that they did in what do you call it, in Germany, yeah? Where they branded, they had, the supreme race, the white man with the blue eyes and so on, and this is the ideal, the
My
pinnacle.
wife is German, but thanks to I do understand the history of German people.
So she would know. She would know.
Well, she's German.
So she would know. Right? Her parents, her forefathers and
Correct.
stuff. They would have been part of this, right?
Correct.
So the idea of the white man with the blue eyes, being the apex.
This is something boogeyman that scares you. Is there a point in the future, or are you just going to keep?
I haven't completed my sentence.
Okay, yeah.
Right? I'm not saying that just because it provided a justification. I'm saying that I'm not making that point. I could say that.
But can you just make your point without the declaration?
Ralph, sorry. I could have made the point. I said I'm not going to be morally sanctimonious and say, well, that's how they justified the burning of the Ashkenazi Jews who you said were the highest in the IQ anyway, which is ironic.
To summarize all these words, are you trying to tell me?
But just let me say my point. The point is, the inherent biases in those scientific practices.
You're repeating yourself at this point, right?
From German scientists reflected upon subsequent results of so-called scientific discoveries. So therefore, you have to understand, number one, how science can be very biased.
Okay, you're making a very long point. You really need to take a minute. Let me help. I can summarize what you're saying if you want. Because you're going to have to give me a chance here.
Give me 1 minute. Just one minute.
Okay,
1 minute, and then you can talk for 2
about
minutes.
20 minutes now, right?
All right, I apologize. 1 minute.
Okay.
To summarize,
your own point.
Science itself can be used by racist people, and then those racist people can then use the word data to make it seem as if science has, this is a legitimate racism. Now, moving on to social sciences, which is even weaker, it's more feeble than science, yes, because it attempts to mimic it. It's a cheap copy, it's a pseudoscience according to Karl Popper. And then the resulting placement tests, which are called IQ tests, which are put in place to try and measure people's intelligence, collectivize them, and then justify further racism, which is what your phase 2 might be. If not for you, but someone else would say it's phase 2 of the program.
I think we're really hitting a minute here, man.
The point, no, it's not a minute, it's not finished.
Yeah, I'm geek, I count seconds.
Yeah. So you have to justify why the parameters included in the IQ test are the best possible parameters when they don't include those things which black people or people of color would have as advantages over and above white people, and do link to intelligence according to a majority of studies that have been done on it. So can you answer that question?
So let me know, you took about 20 minutes and I was respectful.
No, I took 1 minute.
Bit of intro. Before the 1 minute. Right. We can do a video check, I'm very good at time. And let me just start by, because you use Popper and you're questioning the scientific method, you're questioning basically Western civilization, which is the ground you're standing on. So let me tell you about Western civilization. So when you ended what you're referring to loosely as logical positivism with Wittgenstein and Popper down the room and everyone else, this was still 40 years before the invention of computer science. We see people like myself as two types of chimps in this world, those who get theoretical computer science and those that don't. The scientific method is just an algorithm. It's a class of algorithms. Null alternative hypotheses are algorithms. Ones with type 1, type 2 errors are algorithms. Methodological interference are algorithms. Logical positivism is an algorithm. The trinity we stand on that Popper, if you bear with me, the trinity that Popper laid out in his 3-world model, there are 3 worlds. One is the physical world, which I will measure using science and computer science as the time of the universe is 15 billion years, plus our space-time continuum, plus you and I as chimps at a data point time t. Then I will look at an evolutionary stack that by forming computational science models. This abstraction in World War II is measured by conscious creatures, and you and I as two chimps, either those at processing levels. That trinity that creates us tells us that from a gene to a cell, from a gene to a cell to a chimp. So if I took your 20,000, if I forced you and took your saliva, using extraordinary rendition, your saliva and 23, your chimp down for 20,000, I'll see you, Mohammad Hijab, with his 20,000 genes.
I've done that.
I will see which tribe you came from, down from Baghdad, from Ramadi. I will find every gene pool. And I would say you have a propensity for diabetes, for motor neuron disease, for heart. I would look at using medicine, I would look at your chimp. When you enter data space, as us as chimps move on, we're going to measure you. And race realism and scientific... Race realism and scientific realism are just ways that say this is the data. If you don't like it for political reasons, you say racism because obviously you will have to form allies with the left while you're still visiting our lands.
Who's your lands? You're Indian.
Yeah, non-Islamic.
No, you're Indian.
Christian.
Our lands means
Christian.
You're an Indian. You're a colonial subject, ex-colonial
I'm identifying
subject.
myself first as Christian.
Who cares?
Are you a proper Muslim? Okay, you call yourself a Muslim before wherever you are. I'm a Christian first, right? Yeah.
So what's that got to do?
So these are Christian lands.
Christian land. Well, that's a political discussion. That's a political discussion.
I
You want
threw
to
a bit of politics in there just to keep everything nice and warm. So in that Christian Western science, in that Christian, we have data, and we're going to look at the data. And racism in some left-wing view of collective saying, my racism, my sexism,
hold on.
doesn't interest me. It doesn't interest us.
Ralph,
I'm not a racist.
I apologize. I didn't accuse you of racism.
No. Oh, I don't care.
Hold on.
It doesn't mean
I told you today I'm not going to be morally sanctimonious. I'll let that for other people to talk about, right? Yeah. And I haven't accused you of racism. By the way, racism is a neutral term.
Everyone's racist.
No, hold on. What I mean by racism being a neutral term, it doesn't have to be necessarily derogatory, depending on how you define it and how it's expressed.
It's in good preference.
Racism is just an expression of a collective of group, a collective referring to themselves, self-identifying or being referred to.
I respect strong Muslim collectives.
I've let you referring to themselves, being self-identified or being referred to as others, as say for instance black or white or whatever, being oppressed through power relations or otherwise by other people and or being discriminated against. Now, that could have undertones which are political, but it could also be something which is neutrally used. My question to you, which you couldn't answer, and you started talking about algorithms, was the fact that how can you justify making my question is how can you justify
because that's what the data says.
I haven't finished my question. How can you justify making overarching generalizations about intelligence when the systems and methods, and methods by which...
10 of us, maybe you all take the MIT entrance question.
I did let you speak.
Yeah, okay, I'm just saying, I'm just unconscious behind beliefs. But the MIT entrance exam, we will not perform equally on it.
No, hold on. You're thinking in a linear way.
Just objective data.
You're thinking...
I don't care about how you feel.
It's not objective.
I don't care how you feel about the data.
I've not told you about my emotions, so you're talking about something else now. Have I said I feel this way or that way?
Time you seem to think that people are equal.
Ralph,
why do you think people are equal?
No, I didn't say this. Did I say that?
So do you think everyone has the same IQ?
No, I'm not saying IQ. I'm not talking about IQ now. What I'm saying is this. My claim is very... Sorry, Ralph. You expect me to say certain things because you hear that from the left. I'm not left-wing guy.
No, I know you're not.
No, hold on.
You wouldn't be a good Muslim if you were.
Yeah. I don't identify with the left or the right. I don't identify with any of...
Good Muslims are far right.
I don't believe so. I really genuinely don't believe so. I disagree with that completely. But what I was going to say was this. We're not left or right. We don't go in your spectrum, your political spectrum. We don't have to fit nicely within. Yeah. So what I was going to say was this. Was the point I was making? You keep using words like data and objective truth and emotions.
Right.
It's an easy argument to win against someone who doesn't know what they're talking about.
Okay.
But if you're talking to someone who's done social sciences and has spent many years doing so, like myself, and I can tell you now,
just magic, isn't it?
No. I'm not to be funny, but I've got the credentials from those guys that you take as authorities.
No, it's social science. I just think nonsense. I work in real-time markets.
I do have those credentials if you want me to show them to you as well.
No.
But even if we don't talk about that, and I say to you, look, the issue is this. The issue is that you're using a measure which is a byproduct. Listen to me carefully. It's a It's a byproduct of a social science that was done from.
Used to be, not anymore.
You're not listening to my. You're not listening to my objection. It's the IQ test cannot be seen as an incorrigible test that is incapable of being amended in the future.
So can I ask you a simple question?
And moreover, hold on. So
just give it back and forth.
I haven't finished. And moreover. Therefore, to categorize races as a result of their performances on the IQ test, when knowing full well that within the parameters of the IQ test, certain things like bilingualism and multilingualism is not included.
But you're not
listening. You're simply not listening. I will say to you, I'm going to make a statement right now. I'm going to say to you that people that can speak 2 languages are cleverer in my eyes than people that can speak 1.
Okay.
Yes, colonial people that have been colonized by the West and others, because in 1914, according to one of your great scholars, his name was Homi Bhabha. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. Yeah. He's a post-colonialist thinker. It's 85% of people. 85% of the world was colonized by a few European countries. 85%. A lot of people have colonial amnesia. You have colonial amnesia. You don't remember the fact that.
I really take it. It's very long after a while. You don't know. You don't know. Thanks for the free therapy.
Hold on. What I'm saying is, you do have a colonial, because you don't know the extent to which colonial powers that have affected educational systems of measuring intelligence and giving intelligence, so that compartmentalization, collectivization, and then exploitation can be continued in the post-colonial narrative. Now, here's the point. That's why they do it. Now, I'm saying to you something very simply. That in Western Europe, the people that we're meant to see as the Superman, the Superman with the blue eyes and the white skin.
I get the oppression narrative.
Sorry, in the Nietzschean word, the Übermensch, the Übermensch. Those individuals who are meant to be the apex, those individuals who are meant to be the apex of human civilization, because of their scores and IQ tests which have been rigged, so that they can be the. The IQ test can be rigged.
If your IQ is that high, you should be able to praise your thoughts.
They've been rigged.
If your IQ is very high, you should be able to summarize. I can summarize your words in 10 or 15. If you can summarize your own words, it would help everyone else.
IQ test, I'm not falling for that. I'm not falling for that trap.
I don't care if you don't fall for it.
No, I'm not falling
for it.
Ralph.
Will you take an IQ test live streaming, mate? What? Will you take an IQ test?
I don't believe in IQ test. You don't listen to my argument.
Well, I'll take a live IQ test.
Have you got a degree?
You won't take an IQ.
Have you got a degree?
Will you take a live IQ test? Okay.
Have you got a degree?
Well, Mohammad, it's been very
okay, now you go away.
No. Thank you
very much. Now, hold on. Don't talk about IQ tests. I've done enough tests in this country for 10 years.
But you won't take an IQ test?
Yeah. No, it's okay. Ralph, the point is this. If you agree with me that people that know more than one language, if everything's staying the same, would be more intelligent than a person with one language. The question I ask is why have the elitist Westerners not put language ability in the IQ test? Because do you know why? Do you know what the answer is? The reason why is because black people are going to go higher up in that test, and Ashkenazi Jews are going to go down. Yeah. Goodbye. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Come take over everything from your humanity. Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
I will get the listen. Let us see our welcome. So what I'm saying is, we want to establish who God is, not only textually, but rationally, reasonably, with intellect, reason, mind, and text. We want to know who the real God is, who is worthy of worship. Not just any God, philosophical. We want to know who God is really worthy of worship. The God that you worship, in the concept that you